What's happening? Alex ALONSO, Street TV, here to answer and address any and all questions regarding Tory Lanez motion today, which it pretty much went exactly like I said it was going to go in that previous video that I did. I'm sure all the Tory Lanez fans thought I was just hating, but no, I wasn't hating. I was just basically breaking down the way these hearings go. So let me just send a quick post. And then we'll get right into it. Nothing too surprising today, though. Everything went exactly like I thought it was going to go. Anyone who thought it was going to go any other way, just doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to these motions for new trial. They obviously never sat in a trial before. They never sat in a motion for new trial before. People just get into their opinions about how they feel and what they think is right and what they think is wrong, and just automatically believe there should be a new trial. So give me a quick second here and we'll get right into it. And then I'll take any and all questions. Any and all questions. All right. Okay, I gotta say that Tory Lanez had the best legal team probably that money can buy. The best legal team that money can buy. All right. So today's hearing was all about that 84-page motion. Let me just start off by saying there was no new evidence. There was no new DNA test. There was no new DNA. There was no new nothing. There was no new nothing. Let me bring this microphone a little bit closer so you guys could hear me better. There was no new nothing. So around 10, about 10:15, 10:20, everyone's in the courtroom. It is packed. And some people weren't even able to get in. That's how many people were there. It was packed. And once everyone was in the courtroom, the judge said, I'm ready to hear your motions, speaking to Tory Lanez's defense team. Tory Lanez had three attorneys. Of course, Mr. Baez, Matthew Barhoma, and a third attorney named Christine Benevede. I may be saying her name wrong. I got to double check her spelling. So he had 3 attorneys. So the judge summarized the motion on 7 grounds. And he went through the 7 grounds. And the first ground was going to be improper admission of the IG comment. The judge asked the defense to start their arguments regarding the IG post, and right away they weren't ready. They weren't prepared. They didn't want to start off with the IG post. Well, maybe I shouldn't say they weren't ready or prepared, but they weren't ready or prepared to present their case in the order that they presented it in the 84-page motion. Attorney Baez said, I want to go straight to point 6, which was he wanted to go straight to point 3, which was the right to counsel, Tory's right to have Sean Hawley as counsel, because his argument was, because this one right was taken away from Tory, all the other grounds are based on that one right. So every argument ties back to him not having Hawley. The reason why that IG post came in as evidence is because he didn't have Hawley. The reason why that statement that Megan said, that she said that Tory was in the van saying, I'm on probation, don't tell, is tied into him not having Hawley, basically saying that the original attorney, Megdesian, wasn't prepared to go to trial, basically. The judge said, man, I don't want to hear all of that. Let's just go through the motions. Let's go through these grounds in the same order that you presented them in your 84-page motion. They went back and forth on this one point for about 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Well, Your Honor, I'm prepared to present this motion in a different order than I wrote it. And in order for me to present the most persuasive argument, I got to do it this way. The judge was like, look, I'm going to let you present all your arguments, but let's just go through them point by point, and let's start off with the IG post. But Your Honor, in order for me to effectively defend my client the way I prepared to, I need to jump straight to a different point. And they went back and forth, and the judge wasn't going to let up. The judge was not letting up on this one. He was like, are we going to talk about the IG post? Are we going to talk about the Instagram post? And finally, I don't know, it must have been almost 11 o'clock in the morning, because they started about 10:15, maybe 10:45. Let me see. Did I even note the time that they actually started to talk about the Instagram post? No, I didn't note the time. But eventually they got to talking about the Instagram post. And the Instagram post was a comment that someone said that they're saying Kelsey shot Megan. And there's a response from Tory Lanez verified account that says that's not true. So that was the first point to discuss, that that's not true. And let's see, they went through a bunch of case law. And then eventually the judge basically said, your argument is without merit. Your argument is without merit because you knew about this post for who knows how long. This is a 2-year-old post. So you guys knew about this post, even though the prosecution didn't present the post until they were into the trial. But this is Tory's post. It came from his account, and he has to assume some responsibility for making that post. Let's see. What is the main argument is the prosecution said they didn't even know about the post until December 13th. That's when the post came to their attention. And since it was Tory's post, he should have been prepared to talk about it, to counter it, to challenge it. And he doesn't really challenge the Instagram post until the motion, where he's claiming this other person did it. And the main question is, well, why you didn't do that during trial? Why did you not have this guy testify at trial? So that Instagram post that argument is not going anywhere. You could just tell by the tone of the judge. And plus, if you watch my video, I came to the same conclusion. You can't argue about the introduction of a post that the defendant made himself or the defendant's account made. So that pretty much set the tone for the whole rest of the day. They went back and forth about that for a while. And then the second point was the statement that Megan made to the prosecutors in September of 2022, that hour-plus long statement that I actually posted on the channel once the exhibits were made public. They're arguing that the audio was originally suppressed. That was never supposed to come into the trial. Long before the trial started, it was agreed, the defense successfully agreed to keep that statement out of court, keep it out the trial. But it came in because of the way Kelsey Harris testified. She was very elusive. She didn't answer any questions. And then Tory's lawyer during trial kind of made it seem as if the prosecution was coercing or putting pressure or making Kelsey Harris do and say things against her will. Because of that, the prosecution argued, hey, now that the defense wanted to go down that road, that audio is now should be able to be entered into evidence. And eventually it was. And they played that whole thing in court. Now, Baez's one of his main arguments is that they played this audio in court, and they played the audio after Kelsey Harris had already testified. She testified, she left, and then they played the audio. I think it was the next day. So Baez is arguing that you guys played an audio in court that can be cross-examined. You can't cross-examine the audio. Go watch my video that I posted a few days ago. What did I say about that? I said that if you want to cross-examine a witness that already has testified, you just recall the witness. You bring the witness back. As simple as that. You bring the witness back, and then you cross-examine her based on the audio the audio she did with the prosecutors. And that's exactly you could already say the judge says that that any argument against the audio is waived. So just on those 2 points, the first 2 points, it was already downhill for Tory. Then they skipped to issue number 4, which was the third issue. This is still in the morning, to talk about the DNA. The DNA that everybody thought was going to be the piece of evidence that was going to get him released or get him a retrial. Let me first say that there was no new tests. There were no new tests for DNA. There was no new report. There was nothing new regarding the DNA. The only thing new was that Tory had another DNA expert ready to testify in today's hearing to reinterpret the findings. And that expert submitted a declaration. So the judge has a report that this expert wrote. And basically, well, we don't know what he was going to say, but take a guess. What do you think the judge said about the DNA? This is really easy. Everyone should get this. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have gone to law school. You don't even have to have seen many trials. What is the main problem with Tory Lanez challenging this DNA from the trial? And basically, and in a nutshell, the prosecution argued the DNA is inconclusive, meaning that we don't know if his DNA is on the gun. We don't know if his DNA is not on the gun. It's inconclusive. All right, what's the problem with that? All right, I haven't been looking at the comment. I'm gonna look at the comments right now and see if anyone. What's the problem with that? Someone said the judge is biased. I'm gonna tell you right now, Tory has probably the fairest judge on that floor. I'm telling you. Court documents said that his DNA was not found on the gun. That is absolutely not true. There's so many false rumors being spread. It is inconclusive. That's different from saying it's inconclusive is different from saying it's not on there. Diamonds is just talking nonsense. Here's the main issue with the DNA argument. The main issue with the DNA argument is that Tory Lanez hired a DNA expert, and his own expert testified that it was inconclusive. So he basically said the same thing that the state's DNA expert said. So at this point, there's nothing else to argue. You're supposed to argue that in trial. And he didn't. Now that he's been convicted, now that it's been 4 or 5 months, now they want to relitigate the case. And that's not what these motions are for. These motions are to identify errors made in the trial. What errors were made? What procedural errors were made in the trial? Not to change the testimony or to relitigate some aspect of the case. So that's the problem with the DNA. You already argued it. You hired an expert. You paid for this guy to come in, and he basically said the same thing. So those are the 3 issues that were discussed in the morning, and he pretty much was losing on all 3 points. And go check out, the link should be in the description. Go check out the video that I did a few days ago, just so you know that the judge is not being unfair. This is not a conspiracy against Tory, because I basically came to the same conclusions when I went through the motion one by each point. It's not rocket science. The judge entering double hearsay evidence. Though the judge, the reason why that double hearsay evidence came as an evidence is because Tory's attorney was aggressively cross-examining Kelsey Harris. Now, the statement is not coming in for the truth. Kelsey's statement was to come in to prove and to show the jury that she was not coerced, not that everything she said was true. So it doesn't matter if it's double, triple, quadruple hearsay. It wasn't coming in for the truth. It was just coming in to establish that Kelsey Harris was not forced to talk to the prosecutors. She was not under pressure to talk to the prosecutors. When you listen to that audio, which is on my page, she's very relaxed. She seems very eager. She's offering information. That's the reason why it came in, because the original judge, the original defense attorney tried to suggest that the prosecutors were doing something nefarious with Kelsey. And they did that in front of the jury. So because he did that in front of the jury, the prosecution had to defend themselves and say, look, Your Honor, the only way to remedy this is to play that audio. And that's why the audio came in. Now, the motion, they're still going through the motion, but they're almost finished. They're going to wrap up tomorrow morning. There was a couple of points that Attorney Baez was trying to raise. He wanted a couple of his witnesses to come testify. The judge said, I read their declarations. They don't need to testify. Just make the argument. And Baez didn't want to make the argument. He did not want to make the argument. He said, I need my witnesses to testify. The judge said, I already read their declarations. I know what they're going to say. There's no need to waste the time of the court for them to come in here and testify for an hour. I have their declaration. Let's argue the point. And Baez didn't want to argue the point anymore at that point. It seemed like he was slightly unprepared for this motion for a new trial. Maybe his expertise is in trials, but in terms of presenting this motion and trying to get a retrial, it just didn't go off well at all for Tory. And he had 3 attorneys there, including probably the most high-power attorney, arguably the most high-power attorney in the United States. And he has the most fair judge that is giving him all the leniency that a judge can give. So those are the 3 issues that were discussed during the morning. And let's see if there's one more issue that they discussed in the afternoon. Oh yeah, in the afternoon they discussed the photograph with the tattoo on Tory Lanez's chest, the gun tattoo. That was argued in the afternoon, and the argument against that tattoo was because of a new law, the artistic expression law that passed here in California on January of 2023. It went into effect, and for the most part, we don't even know if it's retroactive because Tory was found guilty in December. This law doesn't go into effect until January the following month. Oh man. Apologies, y'all. Apologies. I had a power outage. Temporary power down. Where did I leave off? Can someone tell me where I left off? Can someone tell me where I left off? Baez argued insufficient counsel. Yeah, he did argue. Well, he eventually argued that in court, but he didn't argue that in his motion. So that was another issue. Why didn't you argue what you're saying now in this 84-page motion? So it seemed like maybe he was freestyling it. But there was another point in the afternoon after the morning break. It was those three issues that were discussed in the morning: the DNA, the Instagram comment, and Kelsey Harris's out of court statement that she made with the prosecutors. Those are the three things that were covered in the morning. Are you with me? Put a one in the chat if you're with me, because I had a temporary power down, and I think I was offline for about 5 minutes. Instagram comment, the Kelsey Harris statement, and the DNA. Those are all the issues that was discussed in the morning. Okay. Now, once we came back in the afternoon, the artistic expression argument occurred, and this was about. There was a couple of issues here. It was about the testimony of Megan saying that she was frustrated with the things that Tory was doing on the internet, and she was subjected to watching him do a video where he was chopping up a horse. That was one part of the artistic expression argument, and the other part was the introduction of a photograph that had a tattoo of a gun on Tory Lanez's chest. Now, I addressed both of these in a video that I did over the weekend, and pretty much it went the way I expected. Megan lied about what? There is actually a video where what she said took place. So and if anybody wants to come in here and make their case, please do. But she testified about how that video made her feel, and Tory's defense team is arguing that that's a violation of the artistic expression, the new rule, and then the gun on the chest tattoo. So let's see. We'll deal with the Megan Pete's comment. Now the issue with and then the third part of this was that Tory is arguing that he didn't testify on his own behalf because the prosecution said that if Tory does testify, we want to go through some of his lyrics, his songs, his rap music. We want to go through some of that. So that was the third part of this artistic expression argument. So I'll tell you in a moment how the argument went for those three aspects. But the photo, I actually agreed with the defense that the tattoo, or at least bringing up the gun tattoo, may have violated Tory's rights. I said that in the video that I thought that was the strongest argument of the entire 84-page motion. Not that they introduced the photo. The photo being introduced was perfectly fine because they were talking about GSR. They showed a photo of Kelsey, Jaquan, and Tory at the police station. So showing those photos was fine. But then when EJ was testifying about, he was asked by the defense. See, this is, he was asked by the defense. The defense attorney was asking EJ, do you know if Tory likes guns? Have you ever seen him with a gun? Have you ever heard him talk about guns? And then on cross-examination, the prosecutor decided to take that photo that was earlier introduced and say, do you see the gun tattoo on his chest? I thought that was a slightly dirty tactic. I gotta admit it, but I'm not sure if it's really a true violation because of the way it was introduced. So that's one part of the artistic expression argument. The other part is Megan Pete testifying about a video that she watched, and that's perfectly fine. She's testifying on what she saw and how it made her feel while she was watching it. Nothing improper about that. That's her testimony. You can cross-examine her on that all you want. And then the third part is Tory was saying that he wasn't able to, he didn't get a chance to testify on his own behalf because of the threat that the DA was going to go through his rap music and go through some of the lyrics. And because of the new law, some people believe incorrectly, though, that this new law prohibits prosecutors from going through your rap music and going through your rap lyrics. And the new law actually does not. What the new law does, it makes prosecutors be very specific about which art they want to use against a defendant. And all the art that they want to use has to be approved by the judge. They have a separate hearing. They have a separate hearing to go through whatever the DA wants to introduce. And then the judge will say, no, that's more prejudicial. That can't come in. Okay, that video is very probative. I will allow that. Those lyrics are prejudicial. I won't allow that. So that's what the new law allows, which protects defendants from just having all of their art used against them. Because Tory never testified, he never got to that point. So he's arguing that he didn't testify. He didn't get a chance to testify in his own defense because if he would have been subjected to having to answer all his rap music, lyrics, videos, and all of that. And it's just not true. He never got to the point where decisions would have been made on what would have been admissible and what would have not been admissible. So that part of the argument is without merit. And also, going back to the Megan Thee Stallion comment about the video, all she did was testify about it. They didn't play it in court. They didn't show any lyrics to that song. They didn't present lyrics to the jury. So it was just merely her mentioning the video, which is much different. The artistic expression law is about playing someone's art, showing someone's art, displaying their lyrics in front of a jury. That never happened. So pretty much most of that argument just fell apart. And we'll probably get into the rest. Well, we will definitely get into the rest of the motion tomorrow morning. And the judge will actually rule on the motion tomorrow. I don't know if he'll get to it in the morning. I think that we're going to go into the early afternoon. And think the last thing that they want to argue about is how attorney Sean Hawley was not allowed to defend Tory Lanez because of this potential allegation of bribery. There's an allegation that perhaps attorney Sean Hawley explained to Tory how to offer gifts to Kelsey Harris. And remember, we got testimony in this case that Tory offered Kelsey a job, and he offered her to get an attorney for her. And then for some reason he blurted out, I'm going to word this in a certain type of way that my lawyer asked me to do. So now Tory is injecting his attorney, Sean Hawley, into this whole case. And the defense is arguing that Sean Hawley had to step back from this case to avoid any allegations of bribery. And then that prevented Tory of having a complete defense from an attorney that's been on this case for 2 years from the beginning, and now it's got to be moved to some new lawyers that only had the case for 2 weeks. I think they're going to argue more of that tomorrow morning. Megan lied about the bribery, according to Kelsey. All right, so I'll answer a few questions before I wrap up. And if anybody has anything to say, I know most of y'all don't. You just got your opinions, but you know you can't support or back them up. So any questions? I'll back up and see if there's any legitimate questions here. Megan got caught in like 10 lies. You know what's interesting? Megan got caught in like 10 lies. The only statements of Megan that was in the motion are not statements that you can prove were lies. I actually wrote an article on 16 lies, inconsistent statements, misstatements that we know for a fact that Megan made. 16. But none of those 16 were part of the motion, the 84-page motion. So it just goes to show you, yeah, she lied, but the lies are not the issue here. The issue is who shot her. That's all the issue is. Who shot her? Judge is still wrong using an expert witness to enter a lay person testimony. I don't know what you're saying. I can't wait for the judge to say appeal. It's actually not appeal. It's a motion. So tomorrow at some point, most people are expecting the judge to say motion denied. I move to sentence, and he's going to pick a date on the calendar. Something like he's going to pick a date like, let's see. Let's see if I can. I'm going to try to guess which date the judge is going to move to sentence. He's going to move to sentence Tory Lanez on probably, let's say, Thursday, June 1st. That's if the motion is denied. What does August Alsina have to do with this? He has absolutely nothing to do with this. August Alsina, I don't believe that ever came up in this case. The truth is Tory DNA is not on the weapon. Well, the truth is Tory's own expert. What was his name? Let me get his name for you. We're going to deal with the facts. Tory's own expert didn't even say his DNA wasn't on the weapon. And his expert, his name is Mark Scott Taylor. So Mark Scott Taylor, let's give you the date on that as well. December 16th. Mark Scott Taylor actually said it is inconclusive. So I think James Hudson right here makes a very important point. Why is Jose Baez and these high-profile lawyers taking Tory's money knowing they can't win? He's done. You know, I was thinking about this today. This is James Hudson. You bring up a very important point. Jose Baez is probably one of the best attorneys in the country. He understands what a motion for retrial consists of. It is not a relitigation of the evidence. It's about identifying procedural errors. It's not about bringing witnesses to come to the motion and testify. Jose Baez knows this. So I was just thinking today that Jose Baez is just putting on the best show. I'm sorry, the best show he could put on for his client, knowing good and well that this is not the way you do handle a motion for new trial. But you can't say that he didn't try. He's trying to do all the things that you know you don't do for him in these type of motions. And why would he do that? Because he is charging a pretty penny for his services. I don't know how much Tory's got to pay for Jose Baez, but trust me, it is not cheap. So you think Jose Baez is going to come up there, come to Los Angeles and do the motion for new trial in a regular, normal way? Of course not. He's going to come up there and he's going to bring witnesses that he knows aren't going to testify. He's going to make arguments that he knows that's not valid in a motion. So I think this is just a money grab. I mean, if I was advising Tory Lanez, I would tell him definitely file a motion for new trial, but you don't got to spend you don't have to spend Jose Baez money for this motion. You could get a regular criminal defense attorney for a fraction of the cost to file the same motion and probably argue it better. But he decided to go with the big dog there in Jose Baez. Let's talk ineffective counsel, Charles and Jazz. Ineffective counsel was slightly mentioned on one line in the motion, but when you read the part where every argument was outlined, there was no argument outlined for ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's another thing. When you're doing a motion for a new trial, you can't argue aspects of the case that is not in the motion that you filed. You filed almost 100-page motion. You got to stick to that script. You can't go off the script now and just say, oh, you know what? I just thought of another thing that's not in the motion. That's not how it works. I'm surprised Tory Lanez fans don't got more to say. All right, here's a question, I believe. Did you ever hear that supposed Jaquan interview where he said Kelsey and Tory were wrestling for the gun? No. There's no such interview. Don't you think if there was an interview of Jaquan saying that would be all over the place? Oh, man, I should never even put this on here. Come on, man. The tattoo was prejudicial. I agree that the tattoo was prejudicial, but does that tattoo change the scope of the case? Would a jury have come to a different conclusion? That's another criteria you got to meet. Let's assume this tattoo is prejudicial. This tattoo should have never came in. Does that tattoo change the scope of this case? Does that mean that is it possible that the jury would have came back with a different verdict if that tattoo wasn't included in this case? Great question here. Why didn't Jaquan take the stand? Only his defense team and Jaquan know that. Showed up in court, looked like he was going to do his thing, but he knew there were certain things he wasn't going to say. And at the end of the day, the defense decided not to use him. I think George was wrong to not have Tory testify. We can't make any judgments about guilt, whether or not Tory testifies. You can't hold that against the defendant. The defendant has every right to not testify. So you can't judge this case because he didn't want to testify. I mean, you can. I'm saying you can judge it. But for example, the jury is instructed to not make any assumptions towards guilt if the client decides not to testify. That's actually part of the instructions. You know, you could opine on it, but a jury is not supposed to consider that at all. So Tory should have delayed the trial to get Baez from the beginning. Tory should have delayed the trial to get Baez from the beginning. I think that Tory, he should have kept Sean Hawley. He should have just kept Sean Hawley and just ride it out with Sean Hawley. And we don't know all the conversations that took place that led to the decision of Sean Hawley stepping back. The judge didn't take no bribe. Really, Relly Sunshine. I wish you would come on here, Relly Sunshine. I really wish you would come on here and explain what you mean by this. It would really be nice to know what you mean by this. It would really be nice to know what you mean by that. Aletha Hunt says, I can't wait until it's denied. He shot that girl as clear as day. He should not have had a gun, especially in California. More importantly, he shouldn't have been intoxicated. He shouldn't have drank that much alcohol. He would have been in his right state of mind. He would have made better decisions. But as you heard him say, and as we learned from other witnesses, there was a huge consumption of alcohol at Kylie Jenner's house. You gonna mix alcohol and a gun? Nah, that ain't gonna go well. That's never gonna turn out well. Charles and Jazz. What needs to be said or done for ineffective counsel to stick? That would have to be done at the appellate level, not here at a motion hearing for a new trial. Especially that they didn't even write about it in the motion. But they could outline mistakes that George McDesian made, mostly objections that he didn't make. Objections that he didn't make. I think that's going to be one of the arguments that Tory has. And then also he's going to argue that the DNA. He wants to redo the DNA. And maybe George McDesian could have hired a different expert, a better expert. I don't know. But that's his fault. That's Tory Lanez's fault and Tory Lanez's legal team's fault. And that's not the court's fault. That's not the prosecutor's fault. That's not the justice system's fault. That's all his fault. But he might be able to have action at the appellate level where you can argue more aspects of the case when you're appealing it. When you're doing a motion for a new trial, you're limited to just the procedural errors of the trial. Joe Diaz says, I think the only thing that can save Tory tomorrow is if Jaquan shows up in his favor. Well, even if, let's say Jaquan shows up, how many times was Jaquan mentioned in this 84-page motion for a new trial? Was Jaquan even mentioned? No. There's nothing about Jaquan. So even if Jaquan showed up, the judge is going to be like, what is Jaquan doing here? He should have came during the trial. We are arguing errors that took place during the trial. We're not here to put on new witnesses. Y'all got to understand that a motion for a new trial is, it's not a free-for-all. You can't just start bringing witnesses and say, okay, I want to put this witness on to say this and this witness to say that. No, it's about what already happened in the trial. So even if Jaquan showed up, I guarantee you that the judge is going to be like, go home. You should have came during trial. Can't. This is not a redoing the case. All right, what else we got here? Megan shot Megan Pete. Nah, not even possible. Not even possible based on the witnesses, based on the evidence, based on the where the blood was at. There's pictures of blood on the street, based on where she was at, based on where the gun was fired from. She was clearly shot by someone else. It's impossible that Megan shot herself. Stop spreading stupid rumors. Stupid rumors. Impossible. And Tory's not even arguing that. The defense is not even arguing that. Let's stick to the arguments. Let's stick to what the defense is saying. Let's not make stuff up, spreading stupid rumors. Hey, you know what's so funny? This supplemental motion that was under seal. Everyone thought it was some smoking gun about DNA. It was nothing. It was just they wanted to preserve the attorney-client privilege between Tory Lanez and Sean Kelly, and they didn't want to make public their private conversations. That's all it is. Why is the sentencing so far away? Should only take a week after the motion. You know what, Joe Diaz, you're right. It could take a week, but I say it's going to take at least 30 days. 30 days or less. Let's say 30 days or less. So when 30 days or less, I say 20-something days. It just gives all the parties enough time to come back to court. It gives enough time. Let's say that there's going to be victim impact statements. If Megan Thee Stallion wants to write a victim impact statement, or if she wants to show up in court, it gives everybody enough time to come back to court and also address the issues. Tory Lanez could argue in court during sentencing that he could argue for a lesser sentence. He's got to have time to construct that argument. For example, on the most serious count, discharging a firearm with gross negligence, that carries anywhere from like 1 to 4 years. He may say, Your Honor, can I get the 1 year? Because I don't have a criminal record. I'm a family man. I've never been to jail. I've never been to prison. Instead of giving me the 4, can you give me the 1? So all of these arguments need to be constructed. So they're going to give him at least just less than 30 days. A week might be too soon. And I'd love to tap in with any people who think that Tory is absolutely innocent. You're free to come here and express why you think he's innocent. Let's see here. Viola King says, report the facts. Y'all heard him. Tory Lanez's own DNA expert said inconclusive. That is absolutely true. Let me give you his name again to all those that just came in the room. His name is Mark Scott Taylor. Forensic Technical Associates is his business. He has a bachelor's degree in zoology, and he also has a master's degree. He's been doing DNA analysis since 1985. He's been doing DNA analysis in court since 1990. Technical Associates has been in business since 1980. And this was the DNA expert that Tory Lanez hired. He has testified in excess of 400 times in other court cases. And this guy said it was inconclusive. Great question here by Wendy Chinatown. Was Tory ever offered a plea deal? Was Tory ever offered a plea deal? I'm going to answer that in just a second. So, was Tory ever offered a plea deal? The answer to that question is we don't know, because plea deals are not public. And the only way we'll know is if Tory ever talks about it in the future. But that's a great question. If he was offered a plea deal, we would like to know how many years was he offered. And if he was offered, why did he say no? If he was offered, he obviously said no. But yeah, all those plea deals are done privately. So unless someone decides, unless the only person that could talk about it would be Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez is the only person that could talk about any plea deals that were discussed. Tabias Shakur says 100K a month. Oh, okay. We got somebody here in the room. We're going to tap in with Lucille.
Hi.
Can you lower your
How are you?
lower that real quick? We'll let her lower it. Oh, unmute your mic after you lower your audio.
Hello.
You still have, I can still hear your TV in the back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. The mic is yours.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
I have a question, and this is for the audience. Why would Megan shoot herself if she was under the influence? And how would she aim the gun to her back of her foot and not the front of her foot? I'm confused. And then the second question I would have is, we as females, we argue with our friends, we might fight or whatever, but why we would not get that mad with one another to pull a gun out? That's something that a man would think of, not a female. I'm confused with the thinking of these females that's on here saying that the friend, her best friend, shot her over Tory. What? That don't make sense to me.
Well, it definitely doesn't make sense that she shot herself. That's absolutely not even a possibility. And Tory's not even arguing that. So that's out the question.
And then they said about the, well, his DNA is not on the gun. Okay. Well, we know he had to wipe the gun down because his own witness said the little guy was shooting everywhere. So we know he had the gun in his hand, right? So
Yeah.
let's stop acting like that wasn't said. So we know that even the gun was wiped down. That's why it's inconclusive because they smeared it. So, but well, how did he get? How can he didn't have time? What? Was that not a towel in the back of the seat? I mean, back of the Jeep where he could have threw it back there and put the gun. He was underneath. He was right there with the gun. I'm trying to figure out what trial are y'all in?
Hey, well, Tory's got some diehard fans, so it doesn't matter what you argue. But you're absolutely right. The wiping of the gun didn't actually come up in trial, but it's certainly a possibility that he wiped it, and that's why his DNA is not on it, or inconclusive, I should say.
Inconclusive, but it's common sense. If you know that you just shot this vehicle, and we all been on the streets, we all got a brother, cousin, a friend, somebody. Y'all know how this works. If the police is coming, you know they're coming because you hear the sirens. They thought that they were gonna bypass him. He's wiping this gun down, and he tried to hide it underneath the seat, underneath the bag. Come on, I was like, "Are y'all kidding me?" They kept going with this. I'm like, "Oh my God! If this was your sister, your sister, your mom, your cousin, or your daughter, would y'all really think that you would go this hard for Tory if he would have done this to one of your family members? No. The hate for Megan is so ridiculous."
Well, does anybody want to challenge Lucille on that? I think she makes some great points. There's a bunch of Tory Lanez fans in here. Does anyone have any challenge to what Lucille just said? I doubt it. But no, that's I think from a street perspective, you have the LAPD with their sirens on behind you. What do you do with the gun? You either wipe it down or you throw it out the window. He couldn't throw it out the window because they were already on him. So he probably wiped it down. I'm speculating. He probably wiped it down, but we'll never really know.
That would make sense. That would make sense if I know I just shot a gun and I got a towel. And I'm a female. So I know I'm gonna wipe it down. I'm gonna try. And then what people don't know is you cannot wipe your fingerprints off a gun. You can wipe it down and smear it, but you can never wipe your fingerprints off the gun. That's why it came up inconclusive, because there's so many other fingerprints on that gun. Everybody who touched it has their fingerprints on it.
You mean they have their skin cells on it?
Right.
Not the fingerprints, the skin cells.
Skin cell. Yeah, that's why it came out inconclusive. You cannot take your skin cells off of a gun. It's a spray that they're gonna spray on it to come up with it.
I think you make some valid points. I appreciate you tapping in, Lucille. Any last final thoughts?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. There she goes, Lucille Witherspoon. She makes some good arguments. I gave y'all an opportunity to tap in. Go ahead, Camille. The mic is yours.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect. So I have a few questions for you, Alex. Just as a what's your opinion type of thing. I know that we are past a lot of stuff. Of course, we all still have a lot of questions. But I was listening to Lucille, and I have a question.
Here, let me bring her back in. I could bring her back in too. Okay. There she goes.
Awesome. Great. So on the footage that was released, we can clearly see that Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez were outside of the vehicle on the footage that hit the news. Why do you all think that it took so long for Kelsey to leave the vehicle once the police arrived at the crime scene?
Okay, I don't know if you've ever been pulled over before, right? When the police pull you over, they're gonna take everybody out one person at a time. That's why they took the driver out, they took Tory out, they took Megan out, and Kelsey was the last person. Now, do you think if all these people, all these police officers had their guns raised, do you think that Kelsey is going to play with a gun while the police is having their guns raised and they're looking at her? Let's make sense of this. She has to do what they tell her to do. Raise your hand in the air, sit still, come out. She came up with her hands. She came out with her hands up in the air. How is she going to stash her gun? She's in the back seat and the gun is in the front seat. How does she stash that gun?
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding, you're saying that the reason that Kelsey was the last one in the vehicle was because the police officers were removing them from the vehicle one by one, um, as proper protocol. Because
Correct.
I saw Tory Lanez on the floor. You have Megan the Stallion backing up, as we saw the trail of
Hmm.
blood, things of that nature. I did not see any police officers leading that, and I could be wrong, but I just did not see that on the footage that was released. So I thought that
No,
that was kind of strange. And if you listen to the video clip, you do hear Kelsey like, "Okay, okay, I'm finna get out now." I'm just curious as to why she didn't just go ahead and get out with everyone else.
no,
No,
that's
they
not
don't.
how
They,
they tell you one by one. They'll tell the driver, get out the car with his hands raised up. Passenger, get out the car. Their hands is raised up. Then they'll do it one by one with their hands raised up. Everybody doesn't get out the car all at once, sweetie.
yeah, one at a time they do it. The LAPD always does it. That's called a felony stop. And on a
Hmm.
felony stop, each person comes out the car one at a time.
Okay, that's new for me.
And
I've
and
never been pulled over.
let me ask you a question, Camille. What does that have to do with the case? How is that important to you? Why is that even a question?
So again, like I said at the beginning, I feel like we are past a lot of stuff, and that was one of the questions that I had as far as why everybody feels like Tory wiped off the DNA from the gun. Because Kelsey was the last one inside the vehicle. She had plenty of time to do whatever it was. Could it have been to save face so nobody would be in trouble? That is a possibility. We don't know. No cameras was inside the car that we know of. But I see a lot of people say, well, Tory wiped his DNA off. And I'm not even sure how he would know where his DNA was unless they had microscopes or something in the vehicle. So that was why I had that question, because a lot of people say it was Tory that wiped the DNA off
I
when
have a
it's
question
a
for this young
plethora
lady.
of. Mhm.
Okay, you are a female. You have a best friend, right? Right?
I actually do not have a best friend.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I can't ask you this question then because most females have a best friend. Have a best friend. They have argued, but they never got to the point where they shoot one another. They never got to that point. I mean, you have a friend that you have never got to the point that you arguing and you shove it and you might even get physical, but never do you ever think I'm gonna shoot her. You might get beat up and get a scratch here and scratch there. I'm not even doubting that. But to get come into your mind and say, I'm gonna shoot my friend, I, come on now. We quick to throw our black females under the rug for a black man who ain't gonna really care nothing about us. I like Tory music just as well as the next person, but I also feel as though he was wrong for what he did to Megan. And yes, he shouldn't do 22 years for it, no. But he should do sometime, and she should be crucified for his mistake. They all was wrong by drinking and having
Mhm.
fun. They young. But he dead wrong for shooting a girl. And then I'm really upset because he shot her while her back was turned. What if he would have hit her in the back and paralyzed her? What if he would have hit her in the back of her head? Nobody's not thinking about that. That was a careless mistake on a night they was drinking and doing wild things.
Mhm.
It could have turned awfully worse than what it was.
That is true. That is very
Okay.
true. That's true. So, Miss Lucille, do you feel like it was a drunken moment, or do you think he intentionally had the ill intent to actually
I think
hurt
it was a
her?
drunk. I think it was a drunken moment, and I think that he does regret it. I do
Mm-hmm.
believe he do regret it. That's why he's not disputing that he shot her. He disputing everything else.
Okay. What about you, Alex? Do you think he intentionally wanted to hurt Megan, or do you think they were just drunk and didn't really understand what they were doing?
Yeah, I think it was because of the consumption of alcohol. I don't think he intended to hurt her, but he shot the gun probably at the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of those fragments ricocheted and went into her foot. That's why they never charged him with attempted murder. You know, I'm a little
Mm-hmm.
surprised because anytime you pull a gun out and you fire it in someone's direction in the state of California, that's attempted murder. So even the DA came to the conclusion, we're not going to charge him with attempted murder, but we'll charge him with assault with a firearm and then the gross negligent discharging of it. So that even the charges suggest he wasn't meaning to do her severe harm, just maybe a limited amount of harm, but nonetheless, that's a dangerous thing to do regardless. I mean, you can get killed from fragments.
Mm-hmm.
So he's lucky. And then, I know he regrets it. Who was the one that said that Tory regrets it? Who said that just a moment ago?
I did.
Because today in court, at the end of the hearing, he said to the judge, please don't ruin my life. Like it was like a very heartfelt, request. Please don't ruin my life. And hearing him say that, you can clearly tell that he regrets this whole situation.
I have to say that too. I heard somebody say today, what Miss Megan said, far as it was a black judge. My thing is, Tory know how to play on people's hearts. I'll say that. Please don't ruin my life. Well, when you was on live and you was doing all those videos, you was trying to ruin Megan's life. Now you want spare on yours. I mean, it goes both ways. If my son, and let me clear this up. I am a 51-year-old woman who has a 35-year-old son. And I told him as he was coming up with the street gangs, and we got Bloods and Crips out here every day.
Where are you from?
I'm from Philly.
Okay.
And I tell him when he was coming up, you got everything that you do has consequences behind it. It could be good ones or bad ones, but it's your choice. Whatever you do is going to come back on you. You can't ask for please spare me when you wasn't trying to spare someone else. You done did something to somebody 3 different times, and this is another thing I'm upset with people about. This man done lied several times about what he didn't do to somebody, and y'all quick to believe that he didn't do this. He done did it 3 different times to 3 different people. Why is this time any different? And they were men. So why is this time any different?
No, you're right. You're right, Lucille. All right, I appreciate you tapping in. I'm going to answer a few more questions and I'm out of here, Lucille. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. There she goes, y'all. I'm going to answer a few more questions. I've been on here for a minute. Anyone else have any questions? Let's see here. It's called the Black Woman Hate Train. Oh, man. Now, you can't check a towel. Someone says here, check the towel for Tory's DNA. No, that's not the way. I don't think you could extract DNA, at least from the fingers, the skin cells. Skin cells off of a towel, I'm not sure if that's possible. You can get blood off of a towel and maybe saliva off of a towel, but not skin cells. That's the type of DNA that's on a gun. Skin cells, not blood, not saliva, but skin cells. The LAPD DNA expert literally said the NG wasn't wiped during the trial. I don't recall that, and I'm not sure exactly how you're saying that, but Jason Richards says the witness said he saw the woman shoot first. That's not exactly what he said. He said that he saw a muzzle flash from where the woman was at. So let's get that correct, Jason Richards. I can give you the date on that if you want. Let me see if I have that right here. But he never said he saw a woman shooting first. That's not how it went down. But he also said the little guy had the gun in his hand and he was shooting all over the place. So why you think Megan and Kelsey never got tested? Well, they didn't test for DNA until they arrested someone. Remember, right away, Tory wasn't arrested for shooting Megan. It wasn't until he was ID'd as the shooter, then they got his DNA. Now, Kelsey was never ID'd as the shooter, so there's no need to get DNA from her. And of course, Megan is the victim, so why would you do a DNA on the victim? So they usually do DNA on the suspects. So unless Kelsey Harris was ever a suspect, they're not going to do a DNA, try to match her DNA to the gun. The gun wasn't wiped. Isn't that interesting how people have all these statements to say? You don't know if the gun was wiped or not. You have no idea if that gun was wiped. Yeah, Paula says it right here. They weren't suspects. You don't get DNA from someone unless they're a suspect. Come on, people. You want them coming to get DNA from you? No, unless you're a suspect. All right, people. I appreciate everybody tapping in. I'll be back in court tomorrow morning to hear the rest of this motion. As soon as the judge rules on it, I will be live tweeting. I'll put my Twitter handle down here for anyone who wants to get any updates from the trial. I'll be tweeting updates in the morning, during the break, at lunch, and in the afternoon. So go to Alex Alonso 101 on Twitter. I have the same exact handle on Instagram. And thanks for tapping in with another episode here on Street TV.